"Hey, sweep the floor while I play the piano, will you?" At the College of Music reunion, a genius pianist, my classmate, who looked down on me for dropping out of college, said that to me. Why should I have to sweep the floor for him? I felt a surge of anger towards the classmate who was constantly belittling me. I heard everything you guys were talking about. Then, my childhood friend, who apparently overheard my conversation with the classmate, came up with a clever idea and whispered it to me. I was surprised by what she suggested. My name is Mark. I was a student at College of Music, dreaming of becoming a pianist. Every day, I played the piano, feeling as if the piano and I were in perfect harmony. To me, the piano was like a twin, a part of myself. Inseparable, the piano I played produced a sound that was uniquely ours. Look at his performance, isn't it amazing? It's so good it's almost off-putting. Around my piano playing, a crowd had gathered, careful not to disturb the performance. I was envied by my rivals, as I was expected to have a bright future. Of course, there were those who didn't like me. I don't care how promising you are, don't monopolize the piano and show off like that. Hearing my performance, my classmate Bob approached me and said that I was dumbfounded by his persistence in bothering me, despite the fact that I had chosen a less crowded time and obtained the teacher's permission. Bob, who was also aiming to be a pianist, and I did not get along well. Go ahead, play the piano if you want. What did you say? Not liking conflicts, I stopped playing and said that as I walked past Bob. He shouted something as I ignored him and headed to the deserted rooftop. You're here again. Shut up. After a while, my childhood friend Emma, who liked to tease me, showed up. You ran away here because of what Bob said, right? You should have given him a piece of your mind. That's too much hassle. I just want to play the piano. Knowing about my relationship with Bob, Emma said that, but I had always refused. I might seem cowardly, but all I could think of was my dream of becoming a pianist. Perhaps, such a way of thinking of mine could turn my life upside down. Fate cruelly tested me. It happened one day on my way to college as usual. A truck, whose driver had fallen asleep at the wheel, came barreling towards me. I lost consciousness, and when I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Mark, the next scene that caught my eye was my family and Emma, tears welling up in their eyes as they cried. It seemed they were overwhelmed with emotion upon seeing me awake. A drowsy driver crashed into you, my family explained. Due to the accident, I had severe injuries all over my body, leaving me unable to move my limbs. Both my hands and feet were bandaged. And especially my hands were in such a bad state that Dr. Smith said I might never be able to move them again. Just as I have been dreaming of becoming a pianist, the accident took it all away in an instant. Lost and swirling with emotions, I stood on the brink of despair. Seeing me in this state, Emma, who had come to visit, muttered softly, "Then, I'll become a nurse." What? Surprised by Emma's words, I asked her back, and she looked at me directly, tears still in her eyes. "Even if there's a 0% chance, I'll become your personal nurse and help with your rehabilitation, so that you can play the piano again." Saying this, Emma made a firm promise to me and then left the hospital room. Despite having heard that my hands might never move again and feeling as though my dreams and hope were shattered, she refused to give up. But I didn't expect anything from Emma. I had resigned myself to the thought that even she, who had cried for me as if my pain were her own, would eventually leave me. I had never expected to hear Emma's determination from my family. Emma, she said she's going to become a nurse and suddenly left school. A few weeks later, my mother, who came to visit me, expressed her concern about Emma. She hadn't shared the details with her own family or mine. I was taken aback by this shocking revelation. When my mother asked me, "Did you hear anything?" I hesitated to speak. Since Emma herself hadn't told her own family, I felt it would be wrong to speak on her behalf, so I firmly kept my mouth shut. Realizing that Emma was serious about helping with my rehabilitation shook me deeply. Is she really believing in that 1% chance that my hands might move again? Inspired by Emma's strong determination, I felt compelled to ask Dr. Smith for rehabilitation. Since my condition had led me to leave the College of Music, I focused solely on rehabilitation. However, rehabilitation was not as easy as I had thought. I struggled even to stand, and despite repeated efforts, my hands remained motionless. No matter how much I wished, my body wouldn't easily respond. "You look like you're suffering." "I'm okay, I can't give up now." My family worried about me, and my mother even suggested stopping the rehabilitation, but I didn't falter. Knowing Emma's resolve, I couldn't afford not to try my hardest. Years of grueling rehabilitation passed, and I recently heard from my mother that Emma graduated from nursing school. Since the day Emma declared her intention to become a nurse, we hadn't been in direct contact. We hadn't even seen each other. Even though she hadn't visited me, my mother kept me informed about Emma, which encouraged me. It seemed as if Emma knew my feelings and tried hard to grow as a person. I could feel her seriousness. I could tell because we had grown up together as family friends. It was as if our thoughts were connected, both of us working towards our goals every day. Then, several more years passed, and suddenly the day arrived. "This is Emma, your new rehabilitation therapist. Emma, please take good care of him." Emma's supervisor, unaware of our relationship, introduced her to me. I was surprised. I knew she had worked hard to become a nurse, but I never imagined Emma would actually be assigned as my rehabilitation nurse. Emma responded to her supervisor and waited until he left. Then, she turned to me formally. "It's been a long time, Mark. Have you been well? I became a nurse and came back to you." "Yeah, you really did work hard, didn't you?" I felt nothing but respect for her. Seeing my reaction, Emma grinned ear to ear. "But it's too early to praise me, Mark. The Rail Challenge starts now. I'll support you so your hands can move again. Please count on me." The energetic Emma seemed unchanged from our school days. I couldn't help but laugh, and Emma puffed out her cheeks in dissatisfaction. "But as someone who would be under her care," I replied, "I'm counting on you, thank you." Then, the rigorous rehabilitation with Emma began. I had continued rehabilitation while she was away, but I was far from being able to move on my own. Knowing I needed more than half-hearted resolve to recover, I asked Emma for more intense rehabilitation. Initially hesitant, Emma agreed after seeing my determination. The rehabilitation became even more demanding than before. But it was never a burden. Probably because Emma was there with me. Years flew by. And miraculously, I was able to walk again and had already been discharged from the hospital. Now, I commuted from home for rehabilitation, still working on my not-yet-perfect hands with Emma. Thanks to Emma's dedicated guidance over the years, my hands, once thought irrecoverable, were slowly regaining movement. "You're getting better at writing. At this rate, you'll be able to play the piano too." Encouraged by Emma, I tried playing the piano, but initially, it didn't go well. I remembered how to move my hands from back then, but my fingers wouldn't cooperate. However, I didn't give up. That's the spirit. Weeks later, after another rehab session, I tried the piano again and managed to play the keys correctly. That day marked the beginning of my piano practice at home. Gradually recalling the old sensations. "You did it, Mark." Emma's joyous smile, as if it were her own achievement, made me happy too. Despite having been told I would never move my hands and feet again, Emma had always been on my side, and I had fallen in love with her without realizing. That was hard to believe, because I used to think only of the piano. But now, I was already 40. I felt guilty for having involved her in my life. I wasn't good enough yet. I decided I must be able to play the piano as I used to before addressing my feelings. Until then, I would keep my emotions to myself. Knowing she was of age, I once asked her during rehab, "Do you have a boyfriend?" She evaded the question with a vague no. There was a moment she seemed to be hiding something, making me wonder if she might already have a boyfriend she hadn't told me about. It wouldn't be strange at her age to even have children. My feelings might interfere with her life, but I couldn't give up on expressing them. Holding these thoughts, I received an unexpected message one day from a classmate from the music academy. "If you can, come to the reunion." The reunion was organized by someone who was apparently in cahoots with Bob, and they had invited me, even though I had dropped out at the time. Without any suspicion, I nostalgically agreed to attend, unaware that I was falling right into their trap. The next day, when I mentioned the reunion to Emma, she said she had been invited too and suggested we go together, seeming a bit apprehensive. "Don't make it sound like a girl who needs someone to go to the bathroom with. You still act like a student, don't you? Come on, we're childhood friends and both dropouts, so stop complaining and let's go." Urged by Emma, I agreed, and she seemed relieved. I found her concern endearing and chuckled to myself. Before I knew it, the day of the reunion arrived. "Mark, long time no see, have you been well?" Upon arriving at the reunion venue, my classmates joyfully gathered around me, delighted to see me after so long. I noticed that Emma, too, was surrounded by female classmates, chatting away. We each spent time reminiscing and catching up with our former classmates, as if trying to recapture our student days. "Hey, long time no see, dropout Mark." Then, a familiar voice from behind made me startle. Turning around, I saw Bob, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. "Bob, it's been a while. Do you see that piano over there? It's set up for me, the genius pianist." He pointed towards a stage where a piano was indeed placed. After my accident, Bob had graduated and become a renowned pianist, now frequently appearing on TV shows. I had seen him on TV a few times and knew he seemed to revel in his status, surrounded by his entourage. Among them, I noticed the person who had invited me to the reunion. It dawned on me that I had been set up by Bob and his accomplice. The loser shows up at the reunion I organized. "Heard your fingers don't move well because of the accident. Guess your pianist dream is over. Right. God was watching you. He knew I'm the more deserving genius pianist than you." I pitied Bob, who hadn't changed since our school days. Yet, I couldn't help but feel envious, as he had achieved the dream of becoming a pianist before me. Having once aspired to be a pianist myself, it was impossible for me not to feel frustrated. Bob knew this and had probably organized this event deliberately. "Oops, excuse me." Suddenly, Bob grabbed a glass of juice from a table and spilled it on the floor. He then mockingly said to me, "Sweep the floor while I play the piano. It'll be good rehab for your hands." His entourage burst into laughter with him. But I didn't back down. "Why should I? You spilled it on purpose, so you clean it up." Still as cheeky as ever, "I knew you'd say that, but you know why you'll be the one cleaning, right?" I waited for his explanation, and Bob smirked. "I reserved this venue under your last name. If it gets too messy, the venue's manager will come after you." His underhanded tactics, using my name, brought my anger to a boiling point. "That's why you better clean it up. And hurry, the TV crew will be here soon to film my piano performance." Bob sneered as he walked past me. His entourage followed, one of them deliberately spilling their drink on the floor. Seeing this, I clenched my fist tightly. Honestly, I still harbored resentment towards Bob for his continued harassment, just like in the old days. However, not wanting to ruin the reunion, I suppressed my anger. just as I was about to borrow cleaning equipment from the staff. I heard everything that was just said. The one who said this to me was Emma, who until moments ago had been deeply engaged in conversation with our classmates. Then, Emma whispered to me, "He said that this venue was reserved under the name of Mark, right? I just thought of something fun." "What?" I was surprised by what she whispered to me. Emma, on the other hand, seemed amused. I thought it might be a bad idea, but she reassured me not to worry and just head over to the piano. "Don't worry, you have practiced a lot beyond your rehabilitation. Be confident." With a smile, Emma said this and then quickly went off somewhere. I was a bit perplexed by her bold suggestion, but trusting her, I made my way to the piano. Shortly after, during the TV coverage at the reunion venue, Emma surprisingly appeared on stage as the host, microphone in hand. Who let her have the mic? Then, Bob, who was waiting on stage, immediately tried to stop Emma. But he was stopped by the venue staff. "Sir, you can't just go on stage like that. Hey, let go of me. I'm the genius pianist Bob Anderson. I was informed that Mr. Abbott reserved today's performance. Any changes were made by you, weren't they?" "What? I didn't make any changes." "Who on earth would?" Bob's words were cut short. Turning to see, Emma was sticking her tongue out at the raging Bob. Indeed, she had exploited Bob's misdeed of making a reservation in my name and convinced the staff to change the performer to me. Naturally, as the person who made the reservation had given their consent, the staff accepted the change without any doubt. Somebody stop her. Realizing he'd been outmaneuvered by Emma, Bob naturally erupted in anger. Struggling and restrained by the confused staff, I walked past Bob. "Mark, you. I did clean the floor properly. It made for a good warm-up. I should thank you." Saying this with a laugh, I ignored the frenzied Bob and sat at the piano. After confirming this, Emma took the mic again and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, witness the miraculous comeback of Mark Abbott, who, despite being told he would never use his hands again after an accident, never gave up on his dream of becoming a pianist." With that, Emma encouraged me to play the piano. Relaxing my shoulders, I placed my fingers on the piano keys and began to play the piano. During the performance, the venue was abuzz. Everyone was captivated by my piano playing. After finishing the performance, I received a grand round of applause from my classmates. Watching this, I felt like I had reclaimed the part of myself that had aspired to be a pianist. "Who are you, exactly?" The journalists, who were there for Bob, crowded around me after my performance. As I was bewildered, Emma stepped in and said, "Please leave the interviews for after the reunion," and managed to shoo them outside. After getting rid of all the journalists, she turned to me. "That was an amazing performance. Well done, Mark." "Jer, thank you so much, Emma. It's my way of thanking you for coming to the reunion." "Just kidding." Emma said this with a laugh, but thanks to her, I was able to reclaim the part of myself that had been aspiring to be a pianist. I was filled with an indescribable sense of gratitude towards her. This feeling persisted even after the reunion. After a fun gathering with my classmates, I was leaving the venue when I was suddenly swarmed by the media, causing quite a stir. The next day, I was featured in the media as an unknown genius pianist. And thus, I became known to the world. On the other hand, Bob was left ignored by the media and ended up in a dispute with the venue staff. A classmate captured this moment, and the video went viral, causing a major uproar. He was labeled as the true nature of a genius pianist in articles, leading to a big commotion. However, given Bob's actions, it seemed like he got what he deserved. It's payback for the old days. During our student days, Emma said this about Bob, who had always interfered with my piano playing because he disliked it. I decided to forget about Bob and focus solely on my piano playing. "Hey, there's something I want to talk to you about." A few days later, I approached Emma nervously. She had been helping me with my rehabilitation as usual, but now that I had become a pianist, I was determined to confess my feelings. Seeing me tense, Emma initially seemed surprised, but then she smiled slightly and said, "Go ahead," encouraging me to speak. Although I felt like my feelings were already obvious, I gathered my courage and confessed my love to her. To which she smiled and said, "Finally, you said it." It seemed she had been waiting for my confession all this time. I had initially hesitated, wondering if she had a boyfriend, but in reality, she had been earnestly supporting me in my dream of becoming a pianist again. When I apologized for my late confession, Emma shook her head. "A late-blooming romance isn't bad. I'm looking forward to our future together, Mark." As a pianist often referred to as a late bloomer, I felt somewhat comforted even when Emma mentioned it. A late blossoming love and dream. It was something I could never have achieved alone. It was always because of Emma, my partner. Now, I vowed to myself that it was my turn to be her support.